This is the Shadow Chronicles podcast. We are here to take a deep dive into the inner work, generational trauma, and your shadows. Having those hard conversations so you don't have to. You know, all of that shit that just does not get spoken about. In the third drawer down, in the dark, hidden away. My name is Sky and I'm a shadow integration specialist. I am here to help guide you on your journey to unfuck yourself by integrating your shadows, healing the generational trauma so you can vibrate with confidence and just fucking love your life.
And my name is Todd, who's an integrative health coach. I help people own more of who they are, change their lives on many different levels to become who they really are. Find your compass and follow it, to say it simply.
And we're back. Yay. I feel like it's been ages. Or maybe that's just me.
I think it's a you thing. Because it was like about a week?
Probably.
Give or take.
Give or take.
Well, for us, that's a while.
Yes. As I'm getting my flow back.
You and your Christmassy chopped up mess.
Good times. Good times.
Yep, how eloquent a description was that?
Yeah, totally. Well, I think today's going to be rather interesting. Bit of a...
For how many reasons?
Well, one, it's going to be a bit of a hard hitter, and that's just what I love.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I get to have cool conversations about this topic, which is super fun. So if you have listened to all the episodes up until now, in our earlier episodes, we would have spoken about or, you know, touched on the whole concept of, you know, the victim that then turns into the abuser due to trauma.
Weaponized victimhood,
all of those sort of things. And we're actually really going to take a deeper dive into that concept today, which is, well, I think it's cool and probably very triggery.
You have been warned. Sucked in.
Sorry, go.
No, I was about to say, that being said, the reactiveness by which this does trigger, as is usually the case, is probably a reasonable indication that there's a reason for that. That maybe, just maybe, is a thing that needs a slightly harder look on your part if you're feeling a little triggered.
One of my friends who I did some of my studies with, he has this really cool shirt. I want to get one off him. And it literally says, I trigger you for your growth. And I'm like, I love that. Where can I get it? And I think one of his friends had actually made it up for him as a gift. And I'm like, can you please mass produce that?
Sounds like someone's friend had heard that more than a few times. Like, well, screw you, I'm making you a shirt out of that.
Mind you, I had a client do the same thing. Like a lot of the times, something that I use quite a lot is, and that's okay. So she had that put on a shirt for me for my birthday.
Yeah.
Which I love.
You do say that a bit.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
That's it. So when we look at this concept, whether it's weaponized victimhood, whether it is the pendulum swings the whole ass other direction, a lot of the times this comes down to, and I know when we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, I can't remember now. I had seen something on social media and it was this really cool woman, it was like a reel, and she was pretty much saying that, you know, your triggers are your responsibility. You're the one that has to go out and, you know, move through the pain, move through the hurt, the trauma, the wounds, whatever you want to call it, so those things don't become a trigger anymore and you're not projecting your pain, your wounds onto other people and
hurt people.
Yeah, and then hurting people, which is like 100% fucking true. But the comment section was rather interesting because obviously you had the mix of people going, you know, hard truth or 100% or like little fire emojis, whatever else. But then you go down a little bit and it was a whole bunch of people pretty much, you know, and some of it has merit 100%. Like, you know, if I think one of them was talking about their boyfriend or something like that, you know, if he doesn't listen to me and what is a trigger and he keeps doing it on purpose, then I'm not going to put up with that shit and I'm just going to leave. And I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, well, why are you still there?
Oh, okay, do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it's that much of a thing, why are you still there? And then there was a talk on PTSD and war veterans, and this woman literally, I think it was a woman from memory, depending on the IG handle, literally turned around and said that these people are broken and there's nothing you can do about it. And I'm like, what? Hang on a minute here. So
It's quite the judgment.
Right. I was like, interesting projection, love. Like, you might want to look into that. So
Just the mind boggles at the depth of the internalized brokenness that she may or may not believe is true of herself, that she thinks she's got handled by paving over her ego. We'll get into that.
But yeah, so when we look at this concept, and I really want to stress is not the right word, but I really want to like hammer in home that this is not victim blaming. That this is literally you going, like I think Will Smith said it, and I'm pretty sure I would have quoted him in the early episode we've done. Like, what happened to you is not your fault. What you do with that is your responsibility, though. You know, so ultimately you have a choice, and you have a choice whether or not to take the pain, the hurt, and disconnect all of the beautiful, vulnerable parts of you, and only embody the hurt, the anger, like the rage, defense mechanisms, whatever the case may be, and only embody those to the point where all you're doing is hurting other people. Or you move through the shit that happened, whatever that is. I don't know everyone's story. You move through the shit that happened, so those triggers do not become, like, they don't become a nightmare.
They don't become their own whole set of new stuff on the other side of it, maladaptive behaviours.
That, you know, so people that are, you know, engaging in that behaviour where you may think it's triggering, but to the other person that there's nothing malice behind it, and you're reacting to that as they're doing something horrible to you.
Am I the arsehole?
Am I the arsehole, essentially? You know, you're able to move through that and look at that person and go, well, that person is not actually being malice to me. That person is, you know, engaging in a set of behaviours that, yes, that set of behaviours triggered that emotional response which sent me that back to that pain, but that doesn't mean that that person is doing it. It's just that trigger response to their behaviour, the event, sight, smell, whatever the case may be.
So I'd argue ultimately this boils down to one question. Do you want to be triggered?
Yeah, essentially.
Like, if you don't like being triggered, then what you've just described is, well, there's two options to that. You can be a really reactive pain in the patella and take things to the point where no one wants to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Or you can actually address where those triggers come from, realize that it's like, 9 out of 10 times, no one's actually meaning to piss you off.
No.
Not really. There are some bell ends out there, but we'll work on that. But it's what you do with those triggers that kind of matters. Like, do they trigger you into being reactive, or do they trigger you into being proactive?
Yeah.
Like, which one's which? Because if you have that sort of maladaptive behavior to it, so my triggers drive me to project all my shit out. Like, how is it helping anyone?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess a really cool example is like, if, you know, your triggers are driving you to be reactive, like how many times have you heard like an abuser or someone that, you know, hits his partner or anything like that? Well, if you didn't do this thing, I wouldn't have to smack you, or I wouldn't have to.
Look at what you made me do.
Look at what you made me do. And it's like, bitch, you know, she didn't make me do anything.
Yeah.
You chose to do that because whatever behaviour he, she may have interacted with triggered your ass, and you went straight into fight mode and decided to, wallop them.
One way or the other.
And that is, in a sense, a classic example of the victim turns abuser. This happened to me, so in order for me to remain control and be in control, then I'm going to do it to other people.
Should also qualify as well that victim turned abuser doesn't even necessarily mean that you were victimized, but your perception of being victimized is the important and integral bit. It's like, if you think you've been victimized, well, why wouldn't you get reactive?
Yeah.
So we talk about what's the value in anger?
Yeah.
Was to tell you when a line's been crossed.
Yeah.
When you need to reinforce your boundaries and this sort of stuff. This is
Yes.
kind of what we're talking about now. It's like when you feel that trigger come up, it's like, what just happened? So instead of just going immediately to defense, going, all right, well, where did that come from? But, if you're not prepared to be self-aware enough to ask those questions, then this is how that situation keeps perpetuating, and you just get deeper into that groove, and you're like, well, I don't want to take responsibility for other people's bullshit at all.
Yeah.
It's just awkward when someone has the audacity to say, it's actually your bullshit, mate.
That's a you problem.
The key word when someone says your triggers is your. They're your triggers. How is anyone else going to ever realistically take responsibility for those in any way that's healthy for them, let alone you? You can be understanding. You can be empathetic. How much control do we have over other people's emotions? Really? Really? If you think you can, that's how people pleasers are formed.
Yes.
That's how narcissists become who they become in terms of the power dynamic that plays out.
Yeah.
That's how it becomes a disproportionate, unbalanced power in whatever interaction you're sort of talking about. It's like, well, if that's what you're there for, that's how, that's that mechanic of hurt people.
Yeah.
Like, how else do you really frame that? It goes wrong.
Yeah.
Do you want a healthy relationship or not? Do you want a healthy relationship with yourself or not?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to be triggered?
Yeah. And the interesting factor in this is, like, all relationships are designed to trigger.
I've lost count of how many, like, top tier people have sort of, like, your intimate relationships are there to trigger you.
Yeah.
Because in theory, the necessity of growth as two people together is incumbent on one person's ability to encourage that growth. And unfortunately, I say encourage, I mean trigger. I say trigger, I mean encourage.
Yeah.
You just got to be able to frame it that way. And admittedly, when you're starting out with this stuff, it's not so easy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's not so easy when you're starting out, but that's it, and I know when you say when one person is there to encourage or trigger the growth of the other person, that doesn't mean that one person is there triggering the fuck out of one other person and that's not reciprocated the other way.
Yeah.
Like,
we're not talking about, like, malicious intent here.
No,
it's you're kind of fat, you should go to the gym.
Well, it's that whole...
I was just being truthful.
Well, it's that whole concept of opposites attract, right?
Yeah.
It's that whole concept of you will attract all of the unhealed, rejected, disowned parts of you, hello shadow, into the relationship. Now, it does that, and it does that on a values level, it does that on a shadow level, it does that on a healed versus unhealed level, it does that on a conditioning level. It does it on all those levels to say...
Just an inherent personality trait level.
Yeah, it's
masculine, feminine, yeah, all of them.
All of that. It's to say, hey, I'm here, see me, hear me, integrate me type thing.
Yeah.
And like, as you said, depending on the level of self-awareness you have about that, you either then project it out and go, well, that's, you made me do this, or, you're triggering me because of this, or something like that. Or, it's a case of then, well, okay, this is triggering. Why is it triggering? Like as you said, do I need to look into this? Is this person being malicious, or is this person just being who they are? And that's triggering to me because, for example, I was never allowed to frolic in the, fields of flowers or fucking whatever. I'm just pulling shit.
Frolic.
And to see someone having fun is then ultimately triggering. I'm just like giving an example here.
Well, it's funny. Like, I'm thinking of a specific example. It was a conversation we had about a 15 episodes ago.
Okay.
And it was a thing that you brought to me and said, do men ever grow up? You didn't say that.
Oh, I remember.
But it was along those lines. There was you watched this video of these guys who were flicking coat hangers onto the coat.
And they were having the time of their fucking life.
And you were like, how come men get to have that much fun?
Yeah.
And then I started sending you all those videos of those guys in like the chicken masks with the kazoos who were flicking each other in the nuts and stuff.
Oh, yeah, okay. And then they're like taking it that next level.
And then there was the guys who were playing hopscotch in the slippery soapy water thing. And you're like, how come these guys get to be so carefree and have that much fun? And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I get the impression that it sort of triggered a couple of bits and pieces in
100%.
So what came up?
Well, obviously, definitely a lot of inner child wounding. So for me, when I grew up, I owned a mother role. So I had to become a parent as a child. It was my job to parent my parents in a way where, if you have been following along, I grew up in a very unhealthy, toxic environment, very abusive. Mother half. My dad was a narcissist. My mum was, I wouldn't say a people pleaser. She was just dissociated.
She was surviving.
Yeah, essentially. And so, a lot of things came to my attention as an adult where, like, I will remember when, Dad would fucking start going off and, there was instances where he had left bruises on my mum, but then, from then it was like he would take the car out drunk and crash it or something like that, or he'll literally destroy everything in the house, punch holes in the walls.
Whole other layers of didn't get to be kids because you didn't get to go to hockey training or something because the car was busted.
No, that's it. It was more of a case of, and then like once all the dust had settled all the next day and all that sort of stuff, me as a 6 and 7 year old, I would be the one walking around the house going, not so much cleaning up, but going, Mum, are you okay? Yeah. Dad, are you okay? My little brother, are you okay? Like I was the one making sure everyone else was okay, but yet no one asked if I was okay type thing. So there was that level of I was the one, from the age of 6, I was the one getting my brother up for school, getting him ready for school with me. We'd walk to school. It was my responsibility to walk my brother to school with me. Like it wasn't a huge walk or anything like that. But yeah, that's it. I would, make my mum a coffee every morning and take it into her. She would still be in bed asleep. We would leave the house before she even got up. So like that, like too much responsibility as a child type wounding, right?
Yeah.
So, and as much as I'm not going to lie, yes, I had fun. Like I spent weekends going, exploring through the bush and all that sort of stuff. But from a very young age, I learnt that it was my responsibility to look after everybody. And, hello, people pleaser Sky that came through as an adult where it was like, as a teenager, like I went through a small phase of like getting stupid drunk. But then after that, like alcohol doesn't agree with me. It just, I never got that happy, fun drunk of like, yay. I just got sick.
Blew your brains out. And
vomited and passed out, right? Not so much fun. So I'd be the one sober at parties and stuff like that, looking after all my drunk friends. I would be the one sober driving my drunk friends around, stuff like that. So it was like, so when I saw that, it was that like, oh, well, that fucking sucks. Like, but then also the judgment I find that a lot of women get when they are that carefree.
Yeah.
or they do stupid shit like that, or they're just out there having fun, or, you know. And I see it all the time when, like, and even I've copped it. I've done silly dances as TikToks or Reels or something like that and gotten absolutely, utterly fucking blasted by men calling me how immature I am, grow up, no one wants to see that, all that sort of stuff. And it's just like, hang on a minute here. Like,
the relative anonymity of online interaction and the things that you think you can just fucking say.
You know, super fun. But,
yeah,
you know, and that obviously stamped in home. It was just like, well, and then, like, I think I put it out there in the end. I was just like, why is it that, you know, fun dad, essentially, you know, and then mum's always the one, you know, being a stress head, you know, and all this sort of stuff. And a lot of the times, yes, we're conditioned that way, and a lot of times it's when we have to look into our own wounding and inner child stuff so we can, you know, heal that and release that, because, like, inner child per se, there's like heaps of stuff in there that's awesome, like your creativity, you know, the, like, that sort of love,
your presentness,
gratitude, that, you know, that childlike wonder of curiosity and stuff like that. You know, I'm just going to dig in the dirt to see what I can find. Yeah. For example,
no scorpions.
No. You know, but that in itself is like, you know, it wasn't a huge trigger where it made me very reactive in a way of like, you know, you guys are being, you know, fuckheads, grow up. It was more of a case of that triggered me. I was like,
there's like a tinge of jealousy.
Yeah, that envy side of it came in and going, you know what, if I did that, I would have got fucking reamed. You know, whether or not that would be online, whether that would be offline, you know, by people that's like, no, you're not allowed to do that. You're the responsible one. It's like, hang on a minute here.
There's a part of me that wants to have a conversation about the balance of conditioning and evolutionary biology again. It's like, you know, are women typically always slightly more neurotic than men? But that's a chaos of the universe, weaker sex and all that sort of stuff conversation. We can go into that some other time. But the reason I asked about it, like, what came up was because think about what you just explained for the last 7 minutes.
Yeah, because I take the long way around.
No. You took the short way around. Because we've had this conversation before. It was not 7 minutes.
Yeah.
But that as an example of a thing that happened a while ago and the thing that I'd argue you've made a certain amount of peace with is still a thing that has a reaction on some level still. And the reason I'm bringing that up, I'm putting words in your mouth, I know.
Yeah.
The reason I'm bringing it up is because this is the example that I thought of it's a dumb video. And it's a dumb video of people doing, what would you call it? In a way, not a thing that's the highest use of their time, but in a way it kind of is.
Yeah.
But the reframing, the different framing of a perspective that may be courtesy of conditioning or how you are inherently built and the seriousness with which you do or don't take life.
Yeah.
And where you do or don't find fun. It's like slippery water playing hopscotch, just hitting your mate in the nuts, or just landing a coat hanger on a coat.
They were flicking it like from a distance, and they were like having to catch it on the coat rail, the whatever you want to fucking call it. And it wasn't so much the act of doing that. It was the reactions from them, which was like awesome.
Yeah.
Like that aspect I actually really fucking loved, because it was just...
It's hard to do.
Well, yeah, one, it's hard to do, but the amount of celebration they had for, you know, doing that, it was like, yeah, woo, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And
Your boys watch YouTube channels specifically built on this as a premise. It's like these dudes, let's break the world record for how many things we can shoot an arrow around and still hit the balloon, or how, you know, like those sorts of things. Like those will make a lot of money. Yeah, because YouTube's just a ATM these days.
Really? Can it start giving me some money?
I read that it's $22 per 1,000 views.
Ah.
So if you get...
YouTube, start fucking paying me.
Yeah, 10,000 views is 220, 200,000. Yeah, adds up, right? And if you Mr. Beast, who's got like, you know, 100 million followers, or even then, probably not quite enough. Gee, I wonder why he just goes and cures people of blindness. Literally, he got grief for that, by the way. Because this is another trolling thing that's probably worth talking about. This is a man who's got the biggest YouTube channel on YouTube.
Yep.
Like, by a bit. He's decided to do some altruistic things. One of them was fund people getting surgery to restore their eyesight.
Is that like laser eye surgery?
That's one of the methods. But these people could not see.
Oh, okay.
Literally blind. And he invested, I don't know how much money to get it done. And what would be an otherwise very laudable thing, even then, still had people saying, this is the epitome of white privilege. Like, what's up with your white savior complex and all this sort of stuff? And like, I thought he was helping people who could use some help.
Yeah.
That would otherwise have a more challenging life. And he chose to intervene with. And he's like, cynical. He's like,
But I always
he just wants clicks and stuff.
Yeah, I always thought like white privilege, for example, was, you know, the fact that you could earn lots of money and just be really selfish with it, and someone else that was a person of color or whatever the case may be.
There's nuances and nuances.
Obviously, but yeah, clearly this person, okay, cool, he's made, you know, a fair whack of money being an entrepreneur. He's wicked.
He's on a pretty good wicket.
He's on a pretty good wicket. And instead of being like, yeah, I'm on a pretty good wicket, I'm going to keep all my money for myself, fuck you guys, nah. I'm like, oh, well, what can I do? Like, I've got an abundance of this. What can I do?
He's got more money than he can ever spend, ever.
So he's funded it into helping people, and all of a sudden he's white privilege.
All right, that's an aspect of what he was berated for.
Yeah,
so, he's you know, the more cynical version. Oh, he's just trying to get more clicks. Like, the dude's got enough clicks. Yeah, he'll be fine.
He could still do whatever he was doing beforehand without doing this, and still get enough fucking clicks. Like,
but the reason I'm bringing it up as an example is because even when, no matter what you ascribe his motivations to being, it's still a pretty cool thing he's doing.
Fuck yeah.
But then the people who are being cynical about that, why are they being cynical? What has been triggered by the level of altruism that this man has shown that has changed people's lives?
Well, that's that sort of, I guess, that level of narcissism where they're like, you know, it's all about me and that's it. Yeah. And I will do whatever is necessary to get what I want, and it doesn't matter who I fucking hurt or plow down in the process. You know, and this is the fun thing when, you know, slight wee segue, when we talk about, you know, triggers and how your triggers are your responsibility and all that sort of stuff, is because how you see other people is how you see yourself.
So.
This person is obviously, that's, you know, getting a lot of grief for helping people. Oh no.
What a dick.
What a dick. By all these people, and, you know, about arbitrary motives and stuff like that, and I'm just doing it for clicks. Well, that's some level of narcissism there.
That's why I brought it up.
And like, very cool, you know, like you just told yourself on the internet, my friend. Like,
yeah,
you know,
what's going on for you, bro?
Yeah, that's it. That the only reason that you could potentially fathom handing money out to fund something to help people would be so I could pat myself on the back and say I'm a really cool person, but in real life I'm a fucking douchebag.
Now, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Because that is the example of what's going on for that person. Does that then demonstrate that they're telling on themselves about their inclination or want to be virtue signaling? Because that's essentially what they're doing, but in reverse about this guy. This guy's they're convinced that this guy's virtue signaling. It's like, well, he's got a lot of money. He can do whatever he wants with it. Calm down. And if it means that he gets more clicks to make more money to help more people, like what are you actually worried about?
Yeah.
But what if the triggering is this person actually helps people, whereas you are maybe that person sitting in your basement wishing they had that level of power and influence, and being triggered by the fact that you don't have any to be able to do these altruistic things, which is making you feel shitty about who you aren't.
Yeah, but then also you've just, in a way, like they've just in a way told on themselves on the internet, because if they did have that amount of power and that word, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do what he's doing. They would be doing something that is for self only.
I know what you mean.
If that makes sense.
It does.
And is that why it's triggering?
It's worth asking the question though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, why does anyone do anything? Assuming that person knows. Assuming that anyone else outside of them would know is ambitious, let alone being even remotely accurate or being able to appreciate and understand and empathize with the complex interactions of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors about what got that person to that place to do that thing. And then to just sum it all up as he's actually a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool story, bro.
How's that working out for you?
Yeah, exactly.
You sitting there feeling triggered. Like, do you feel good about that, or are you feeling familiar about that?
Yeah.
And that's what, like when we first started this episode, like when you were sort of going through that's why I asked the questions, like, do you want to be triggered?
Yeah.
Because some people do.
Call them psychopaths. No, but
there's that.
But there's that level of like as you said, that, oh shit, I'm triggered. I wonder what that means, or, and stuff like that, rather than, you did this and that means that this is what's going on, right? And that's a you problem, not me reacting in such a way to something that wasn't actually ever intended as malice.
Nothing to do with you, bro.
It's like the case of, when, and I think like relationship wise, I think this one will be quite apparent. So when people like are unfaithful, for example, someone they get cheated on or whatever else, and then they have that whole other level of insecurity that comes through, and then instead of healing, whatever is happening, because like I find it very interesting that whenever something happens like that, so same with like, children always internalize themselves because their frontal lobe's not developed. So whenever they
sophisticated enough to do it any other way.
That's it. So, like for me, for example, when I grew up, and that's how, like, you grow up with that level of that what happened to me was my fault. And I must have been bad.
Dad left because I sucked and didn't get 6 wickets in my bowling in.
Whatever the case may be. And same thing when it comes to infidelity, if you're in a monogamous relationship, for example. And if you get, you're the one that gets hurt by that, and it's like you go through that process of like, well, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
And all this sort of stuff, when it, unfortunately enough, it actually has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the person and what they're not receiving on an emotional level, which again is not your responsibility, it's theirs, especially if they haven't communicated that fact.
I know what you mean.
Yes.
I think at times there is a balance between those two things.
Well, yes.
Because that other person who's been cheated on, maybe they've got wounds about their ability to sort of maybe they've got issues around intimacy or something like that. But
Yeah,
sorry,
and I was getting there. You're doing good. Yeah. So and then they move into the next relationship with all these wounds, intimacy. You know, I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty. Whatever the fucking story is, right?
get clingy and
yeah,
needy and just kind of pushes people away.
And you push all that onto the next person, and they haven't actually done anything wrong yet. You know,
that's why it's called baggage, guys. You dump it in, you lay it all out in front of the next person,
and they're like, you're not allowed to do this because in my last relationship this happened, and this person did this, and it's like, well, was it that, or was it like, you know, it wasn't necessarily, you know, them going out. It was them making the decision to do what they're not supposed to be doing.
I didn't realize I was your ex. My bad.
Yeah. Right? Ooh, you know, but that's what I mean by, and as well, like your triggers are your responsibility, you know, and yes, like as you said a little bit a while ago, there is understanding, there is empathy, there is that time and space, as we've spoken about in earlier episodes as well, where you know, you're allowing that time and grace if that person is going through something to be able to work through it. But are they actually working through it?
At some point, that's taking the piss.
Yeah, are they working through it or are they taking the piss?
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately what happens is then when you project all of your shit onto the other person, you become the one thing that you don't like. Like, you know, you become the thing that you hate. You become the person that you hate the most.
You mean weaponized victimhood?
That, you know, it is that case of like, well, you know, I'm going to react like this if you do that because this person hurt me like this. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. You've just made an excuse for treating someone like trash because someone that isn't even the next person who hasn't actually done anything wrong yet.
And even then, sometimes acts that way preemptively because you are so unaware of your shit.
Yeah.
It's like, this person's totally going to like cheat on me.
Yeah.
But that's such a subconscious thing that you act that way even before you realize. So you're pre-triggered by not even the person in front of you.
No, that's it.
But been in that relationship.
Yeah. So have I. Good times.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, oh, I trust you. I just don't trust the other people around you.
Two to tango, bro. But
interesting.
Anyway.
Yeah. You don't trust the other people around you because you are one of those people. Like, yeah. And you can't hack it if someone else did that to you, but you're quite happy to do it to everybody else because of X, Y, Z.
The things that you choose to be oblivious to in your own behavior, right?
But then is it that level of oblivion? Because there has to be that level of awareness for them to go.
But that's why I say choose to be oblivious. Because to be genuinely oblivious is not a choice. It's just theoretically you lack the information.
No fucking idea what you're doing until
absolutely none.
Until someone brings it to your attention, you're like, oh.
But that's why I said like it's a choice at that point. It's like I choose to ignore this. Let's be honest. It's quite often. You know, episode before about addiction. It's like you are choosing to ignore a thing by doing something else that lets you offline yourself and ignore it harder.
Yeah.
Doesn't really.
Whatever you push down will come back up 10 times.
And, you know, we talked about wound buddies and all that sort of stuff. It's like you have all those people who soothe you. Is there such a thing as an anti-trigger? They almost placate your trigger. So like wound buddies being what they are sort of thing. It's almost like they make you feel better for the shit that you know is triggering that you're intending to ignore, that you still know is a thing. You're just kind of running away from it and having other people help and chip in with that. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I got told off for calling that out once.
You're pretty rude.
I know, right? How dare I? How dare I turn around and say it's your problem and you need to fix it? Not without apparently having any care in the world of what that person went through.
So,
grew up in the same house.
This sounds like a story. Maybe not today. It's not unfair or unreasonable, however, to ask respectfully that the person who may be triggering you help.
Yes.
I'm finding this really triggering. I realize this is my responsibility. I'm asking you to, at least for a while, help me through that by not engaging that behavior so much so that I'm not feeling constantly overwhelmed, so that I can have that space to do what I need to do to heal, so that this is no longer a thing.
Which is that understanding and that empathy side of it.
That.
You know, and that's that, you know, self-awareness enough to know that, you know, the trigger is happening. Self-awareness enough to know that the person that's doing it is not doing it out of malice, but it's obviously creating that flight, fight, freeze, fawn mode within you to go, okay, something needs to be done so I don't poison my relationship, whatever relationship it is.
Ideally.
You know, and even still, it may not even be a case of, like as you said, you know, reducing that behavior, but having that
qualifiedness about it.
Or even just
babe, I'm not doing this to piss you off, I swear.
The like resource keeps coming to my brain, but it's not what I need, not the word I want. Welcome to my amazing brain. Reassurance. There we go. Close. That reassurance to go, you know what, like, yeah, I'm not doing this, you know, like whether it's sorry or whether it's like, I understand, I'm not doing it on purpose. It's okay. Here, like, you know, all this sort of stuff. I'm just going to hold space for you while you empty your, you know, all of that sort of stuff. What are we going to do different? You know, and that's how two people grow and evolve and
look,
yada, yada.
Sometimes that backfires. Sometimes it does not matter. Because that relationship I was mentioning just before,
it didn't seem to matter.
I lost count of how many times I tried to qualify. I will never mean this in the malicious way. It's supposed to be banter. It's supposed to be a joke. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I can do to change that, short of changing who I am and how I find
disconnecting a whole
connection and amusement and interaction with you, which I don't want to be a thing.
Well, that's disconnecting a whole ass part of you.
But that's what I mean. It's like, do I cut off my arm to be less authentic in who I am? Like, not unreasonably hoping that that's what she saw in me and valued, to placate a thing that I'm doing my best to qualify as a thing that's never intended to trigger her. Yeah. But it just does anyway.
But then obviously then the work was never done to overcome that. So it didn't become a thing anymore, which again is that whole, like, your triggers are your responsibility. So, you know, you have the choice to be a bitch or an asshole, or you have the choice to go, this is my shit, I need to sort it out, because I know what it's like to be told that I have to be X, Y, Z in order to be good enough. And yet I'm about to tell somebody else that they have to disconnect a whole ass part of themselves in order to be good enough. You know, like, cool story, bro.
And I guess, like, you being the person that is being asked to help or not trigger or hold space, like, there is a difference between a temporary pulling back of behaviors and a complete cut off of an element of you that is fundamental and genuinely authentic. And only you can sort of make that decision. It's like, is this person showing willing enough to sort of heal through their shit that I'm prepared to make a temporary sacrifice, knowing that I can see the value in something beyond the next however many months that I'll go back to being, because they'll have had the time to heal through stuff.
Yeah. I find it interesting though when you, like, and I don't know about you, but I've definitely noticed when, like, you know, like as you just said, that temporary removal of a certain behavior that is triggering in order for that person to have the time and space to heal and stuff like that. That almost never happens. The minute that behavior is removed and it's not a trigger anymore because it's not jabbing you, there's not that process of moving through it.
It's like you've got that temporary relief.
Yeah.
And you just lean into that.
And you just lean into that.
I'm not doing the work if I don't have to.
And yeah, exactly. You know, and then like however long that person holds on to not doing the thing before it's like, okay, there's been enough time past now. Everything seems to have calmed down, yada, yada, yada. I'm just going to go back to my authentic self, and then boom.
Yeah.
You know, and not saying this is like a very big over exaggeration, but I'm going to call it back to like conditioned narcissists again, when they get called out and it's like they go back to that love bombing. I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again. You know, rah, rah, rah. And they change their behavior for like a couple of months till you start to feel safe again. And as you said, you lean into that relief, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, you're back to normal. So, yeah, they have the ability to remove all of the shit that's triggering and upsetting their partner, but not actually working on it. And
Vice versa.
And vice versa, you know what I mean? It's just that, you know, case of, the minute you remove a part of yourself, whether temporary, permanent or whatever else, the other person has that relief to go, I don't have to do anything now, wicked, you know. And I'm not saying to, you know, engage in behaviours on purpose to know, like, you know, if you know something's triggering, you're like, I'm going to go this tenfold just to piss this person off because, you know.
Then I get the chaos and the control and the power.
And then I get the chaos and control and power because, you know, that would make you an asshole. But to completely disregard a whole ass aspect of you that is not malicious, to, like, as you say, placate or allow space for that healing to happen, 9 times out of 10 never actually happens.
I was about to say, look, maybe you're that 1 out of 10. Maybe this person and who you know they are, but you can see they're a little bit buried in old bullshit. Because I want to give them the opportunity to be the thing. So when we first started this episode, we were talking about, you know, like, do your triggers drive you into defensive lashing out behaviors, or do they drive you into, holy shit, this person actually showed up and cared for me?
Yeah.
And they're willing to do this because that's who I am. I'm going to embrace that shit. Like, you always want it to be the second one. But maladaptive behaviours being what they are, what did we say about control and drama and power? So people don't like to give power back. Yeah.
And also, it's just, I think you said this in earlier episodes, people don't want any more responsibility than what they've already got.
I hope when I said that, I qualified it by saying, the exception being if they're willing to lean into who they could become, as opposed to being
douchey.
I was about to use the word satisfied, but overly comfortable with who they are.
I think when we're having that chat, we're having a chat about and not to put people in boxes or anything like that, but we're talking about sort of men that become fathers and don't actually help around the house or look after the kids or whatever else. You know, they've gone through all of their relationship not having, you know, all these responsibilities, and then that next person comes through and there needs to be more leaning and more help and support and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, and that's how a lot of, you know, relationships then sort of break down type thing. And, you know, we're having that discussion is like, those people really don't want any more responsibility than what they've already got. And, you know, and I sort of, that's how I meant it. Like, if you're leaning into that relief or into that satisfaction of like, oh, this person stopped doing the thing that's triggering me, I don't have to worry about it anymore. That's you going, well, I don't want any more responsibility than what I've already got. So I'm not fucking going to worry about
keeping my energy where it belongs, on the couch.
You know, but then it's still like that. You're still handing your power over.
Yeah.
You're still saying, you know, I'm like this because of that.
it is a slippery slope, to put it mildly.
Yes.
And we could argue that there is a physiological reasoning behind that, an egotistical, because your ego doesn't want, like,
Your ego likes to keep you in the known.
your brain's there to keep you safe and right, or at least your ego is.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to change things because it's not predictable.
I don't know what that is. That's
Dumb.
unknown. Unknown is scary.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
like, like the mental and emotional exertion is more energetically draining than physical exertion. Well, this is why you avoid it. It's like, on a real level, safe and right, your body is built to be efficient / lazy.
Yeah.
It doesn't want to exert energy. It doesn't have to, because it's rarely evolutionarily worthwhile. But sometimes you've got no choice. You have to. But if there's all these other people in the tribe making sure that you can be lazy, the natural human inclination to be lazy / efficient,
It's going to be there.
it's
You're
rare
gonna-
that someone doesn't lean into that.
Yeah.
Which is why I do like, say, David Goggins. Don't look at me like that. Anyway. You Philistine. I do like David Goggins, he was in the Navy SEALs. He was a US Army Ranger. He tried out for Delta Force. I don't know how that worked out. I can't remember. Ultramarathon runner, world record chin up in 24 hours holder. Like, just how many lifetimes would the average person need to achieve one of those things?
Yeah, that, right?
But him as an example is like, this is why he's this tier of dude, because he goes so far out the other side of leaning on sort of the status quo of himself within himself.
Yeah.
There's a chapter in his book, actually, where he realizes he's taken that too far and his organs were shutting down and he needs to sort of actually have a little bit of rest. And digest sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's another series of episodes. But that as an example, that's why we revere that, because like, he's so invested in not being
Average. Beige
that he becomes really interesting just because of that, let alone all the cool shit he does with that.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept, because obviously you said, like, human beings naturally are inclined to be efficient, which means they're inclined to, if they don't have to do something, they fucking won't.
It's why you get unfit when you don't train. It's like, your body doesn't want to maintain that neurology, that physiology, that muscle, that demand. Like, it doesn't want to, because it takes energy and effort to do that.
But then on the flip side of it, like, human beings as well thrive off goals and achievement and stuff like that. Like, dopamine.
Juxtaposition of it, right? It's like it's a paradox.
Yeah.
But it comes back to, do you want to be triggered? And more importantly, what does it trigger you towards? Does it trigger you towards growth and evolution, or does it trigger you to ostrich head in the sandedness? Because I am ripping out the metaphors today.
Totally.
What do you want?
And what does that look and feel like?
And if you're not prepared to at least try and answer those questions, I don't have answers for you, mate.
Beige covered trash land?
Yeah. Like, have fun with your pocket full of winnings.
And then, like, keyboard warring people on the internet because they seem to be having lots of fun, and you're sitting here in beige covered trash land and wondering why you're not getting anywhere. And all of a sudden, it's their problem, not yours.
And then that's the very thing that triggers you. It's like, no one actually gives a shit what everyone else is doing.
No.
Until such times as you have someone showing you what you're not doing.
And then all of a sudden...
That sucks.
That sucks, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm being a lazy piece of shit. I don't want to internalize that anymore. No. How about Sky wears some in the face because she did a dance on a TikTok once? I don't think I ever got any sort of pushback from any of the stuff I did on.
Yeah, but you're also 6'5", covered in tattoos and built like a brick shithouse. So
There is a certain amount of privilege that comes along with that. But even on like the internet,
but
like, there's a level of anonymity.
I don't think you get a lot on the internet. No, but you get a little bit. Don't be awkward.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring it up a little while ago.
Okay, cool. Well, nice little segue.
Because this is a thing I had to sit with. Because I brought this up with you because I had two people in my life who I do trust who called me too nice. Now, I don't know if we've gone into the depths of my thoughts on the difference between nice and kindness.
Well, you have with me.
I have with you.
Yes,
but
definitely.
that's because you were there for the conversation.
You were there for the conversation. That's it. But so, like, your definition of nice and kindness is the same as mine. You know, so yeah, like, don't be nice, be kind. So being kind is, you know, giving someone a hard truth when it's necessary. Being nice is to placate someone just so you don't trigger them. Kind
is things that you do for their own reward as opposed to a thing that they might give back to you one day or worse, owe you.
Yeah.
And the two people who said it to me was like, all right, I didn't take the opportunity to ask more questions. But the reason I needed to sit with it is because why is that triggering of me? Because I know what I think about those two words. I don't think they think the same thing about the definitions we're using about. So like the necessity of sitting with what's come up for me when someone's described me as that I need to sit with and address one way or the other. The irony is that these two people who said this to me are probably two of the people in my life who've benefited the most from my altruism.
Yes.
Or at least how I see it as altruism. They're my friends, I care about them. Why wouldn't I do this stuff for them?
Well, that's it. You sheltered them. You've provided, you know, and
they needed help.
Yeah,
why
exactly.
wouldn't I?
Well, that's it. You know, I'm not saying that isn't a bad thing, but that's the thing. Like, you know, and you make yourself late for everyone else in your life to listen to them.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate description. And I'd like to think the vast majority of people who see that are okay with it. They've never said otherwise.
Yeah.
Because they understand that I'm not trying to be late.
No.
They know me well enough to know that there's no real maliciousness behind it. I'm not turning up 10 minutes late just to go, look at how powerful I am. You have to do what I say, blah, blah, blah. Just like pettiness, douchebag overload.
Right.
Because I do actually actively care about the person in front of me. And as I say, the necessity of sitting with that and going, what do they mean?
Yeah.
What is it about me that would compel them to say that? Is it about me?
No.
Because I feel like I'm authentic with myself in terms of why I do the things that I do. But at the same time, these are two people I trust to have my best interests at heart. So I gave it the benefit of the doubt and said, all right, well, what are they seeing that might be a thing that I'm missing?
Yeah. I have a theory on one, but that might be a conversation off air before on air, just to...
Did we share these theories in the conversation that you and I both had about it?
No.
Okay. Anyway, we'll get to that then.
Because I was thinking about it the other week or something like that, and it's something came to me. I was like, So.
But seeing as we threw you under the bus about, you know, like what triggered you with that video, I was like, well, why not throw myself under the bus and say, well, this is the thing that come up for me. It's like the necessity of mapping out who I think I am as best I can, being honest with myself about how true and accurate that actually is, so I can be discerning about where this triggering actually leads me to. Does it compel me to go, yeah, that I'm going to get reactive to that, or I'm going to lean into that and go, do I double down on what I think is true of me just because what I suspect two people who are not used to this kind of treatment not being to get something back?
Yeah.
At which point I'll sit there and go, no, I know I'm doing the right thing.
And then, but as you said, it's like two people are not used to doing something without having, you know, that getting something back or doing whatever. Yeah. What you just said.
The thing.
The thing. So that's, but then again, that's their trigger. That's their, you know, that's their like, hang on a minute here. I need to sit with this.
Yeah. How much of it was projection?
Yeah.
How much of it was, this is an actual thing for me.
All of it was projection. And
figuring out where I actually think I sit. Because ultimately there's only one person who will decide that, and that's me / you / anyone who's got this stuff come up for us. Like, I can't expect other people to answer it beyond maybe let me soundboard stuff to go, yeah, that's kind of what I thought. But you get an outside perspective to be able to sort of say, oh, it sounds kind of accurate to me, mate. Or, no, you're delusional. Get off your cloud, bro.
Yep.
But again, that's why I sort of brought it up with you. It's like, no, you're someone I trust to have my best interest at heart. What do you think?
Yes.
This is what I think. This is what they said.
I just laughed, by the way.
Yeah,
I thought it was hilarious. I was like, great projection. Let's just sit with that for a minute, shall we?
But that as an example of the necessity of taking those steps to go, what come up? I was called a thing that they don't know what I think about that word. Okay. Take that out of the equation. Step back from my thoughts and feelings on that. What really happened?
Yeah.
Everyone can do this. Promise. Honest. They can do. You guys can do this. Do you want to?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Because I don't want people to call me nice and it be a thing that I get reactive about every time that word enters the conversation. Because, blech.
Yeah. Welcome to Baseland.
Yeah. So the necessity of leaning into it and going, all right, well, why do I do the things that I do? Is it to be that people pleaser, to have people's good opinion of me, be the energetic exchange that comes back because everyone says nice shit about me? Is that why I do it? Doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. Well, having nice said about you is still nice, but no, I don't think.
It's the balance of internal and external validation.
So you do it because you, as you said, you genuinely care.
But you have to take yourself through those processes. Admittedly, I've had a little bit of practice with this. And if you're listening, maybe you haven't. But this is, as a story, is trying to sort of demonstrate those little tiny steps to go, well, this is a valuable question for me. This is why I asked myself of it. This is the answer I came up with. This is the next step it led me on to.
Yeah.
Maybe that will work for you too. Maybe it won't. Maybe you need a different question. Maybe you need a kick bag. And then 20 minutes later, you might be in a different frame of mind to be able to answer and ask that question.
Yeah. And that's it. It's something I always say to my clients when we go through this process of like, you know, being responsive over reactive. And like, as you said, you've had a little bit of time to practice this. I've had a little bit of time to practice this because same thing, like you gave me some feedback the other week on one of the people and I sat there and went, old Sky would have been like, oh no, this person doesn't like me. What have I done wrong? And now I'm just like, hang on a minute. Like nothing I did was ever in malicious intent. You know, essentially all I was doing was placing a boundary down. And they took it as, oh, that person doesn't like me anymore. Or Sky doesn't like me anymore. Interesting. Without actually confirming or coming back up to me and going, is everything okay? You know, I got this sort of I got this energy. Is it like, you know, just want to make sure and all this sort of stuff. So, you know, I sat there, I'm like, well, that's not a me thing. Interesting.
Did I tell you why I told you?
No, you just said it was just feedback, which was fine.
Yeah. I could see it being things like, oh, you're playing everyone else off against one another. It's like,
How dare you?
no.
No, because you didn't come in and go, oh my God.
Guess what?
Guess what?
Said.
Yeah.
From memory, it came up kind of naturally in conversation.
It was conversation. I was
there
asking
this
questions.
thing, and it come up as a thing. It was like, she said this. And the reason I actually told you is because I trust you to be able to handle your shit.
Yeah.
Generally.
But yeah, and it's
but to tell you so that you have information that may or may not allow you to set appropriate boundaries or adjust your interactions or lean into your interactions.
Exactly.
You're an adult. You can handle your shit. I gave you the information because I know that.
And that's it. And like a lot of the time, you know, when I work with clients on this, it's never going to be all of a sudden you've gone from reactive to responsive like that. You know, there is a process of, you know, maybe you reacted and maybe you hit a kickback for a little while, and then 20 minutes later when all of that, you know, triggered energy, whether that's anger, hurt, frustration, whatever the case may be, has settled, and you've then gone and were able to then deconstruct it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then go, oh, okay, I understand that. And then the next time it happens, maybe you go to react and you stop halfway through and then take a step back and go, hang on a minute.
Yeah. Been here before, what come up?
Been here before, what come up? To a point where you all of a sudden something happens, you're like, huh, that's interesting. Wonder what that means. And like not so much as like water off a duck's back, but literally water off a duck's back.
Depending on which kind of philosophical guru or mindset coach, as just a flippant title thrown out there, you talk to, this is kind of the ultimate, like Alan Watts is an example. He describes it as like you are a consciousness experiencing itself. And like we've said like multiple times before, you are not your thoughts, you are not your past.
No.
You are the consciousness attaching meaning to current events that may or may not be related to that, and you draw conclusions or whatever. One of the things that's being said sort of at that end goal, I'm not happy with the word goal, that one of the more upper tier layers of transcendence, that'll do, is that you don't instinctually attach meaning to things straight away.
No.
Hence the water off a duck's back. You are present with yourself in an experience that you're present and conscious enough of to attach the meaning that feels appropriate to you, assuming you want to.
Yeah.
So you might get to a place where there's an awful lot of neutral about how you live your life because you do or do not have any interest in taking that stuff on.
Well,
and when I say neutral, I don't mean like in a bad, detached, like
more
uninvested.
But it comes back to, you know, the perception you have of someone else is a reflection of yourself.
Yeah.
So therefore, the perception that someone has of you is a reflection of them. So the neutral space you come to when someone comes with a perception of you, you automatically know that that perception of you is not necessarily you. It's their reflection of themselves, or the mirror that you've thrown up. Because like one of my educators, Paul, he was super amazing. He said this, and it's one of those things. I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. But the reactions that you have, like, let's say, for example, of like someone judging you or not liking you, or, you know, those like people pleaser type triggers and all this sort of stuff. The only judgment that affects you is the judgment that you believe. So if someone says that you're a shit person and all of a sudden you're affected by it, it's because somewhere deep down inside you believe that you're a shit person.
So the story I just told, I absolutely was a people pleaser way back in the day.
Really? I've heard stories, so yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like relationships and just doing what I needed to do to get along, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like just to placate the situation. Didn't work out. Wasn't that valuable.
No.
So, but at the same time, there's that initial like, is this me going back into old habits? Is this still true of me? Or have I grown past that?
Or even just transformed it.
That's what I mean. It's
you know, because that process of integration is not necessarily, you know, you becoming the monster type thing when you integrate, you know, the parts of you that you disconnected in order to be the people pleaser.
Yeah.
It's not about becoming then the monster. It's about, you know, integrating everything and allowing it to transform so you can be your true authentic self, whatever that looks like, you know. So, yeah, it's...
And like with the analogy you were sort of talking about before, it's like, do you choose to reflect anything back? Do you just experience this moment with a level of neutrality that means that it doesn't actually mean anything to you? So the necessity of attaching meaning to it one way or the other
is not really necessary.
So you've experienced something without necessarily taking it on. Which usually means that if someone...
You're like, woo, winning for you not taking on other people's shit. Like
that. It's like, it's almost like a boundary that doesn't actually require you to have a boundary. You just, like, it's a boundary for you.
Yeah, it's a boundary that is not one in a sense where you have to voice said boundary.
Yeah. It's just, I choose to not have that affect me. Anything else? And you'll quickly find that more positive version of neutrality will like dissuade people from projecting shit onto you pretty quick smart.
Oh yeah.
So I don't get the reaction that like validates my bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to that guy again. He made me feel uncomfortable by just being quiet.
Yeah, or just being neutral.
What a dick.
Didn't react. Oh no.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's it. So yeah, process of natural selection.
Yeah. But the necessity of going through that process and sort of realizing what weaponized victimhood can actually look like and sort of appreciate it. Like, am I a victim of other people's behavior and therefore I'm triggered and blah, blah, blah? Or do you take your own power back and go, am I a victim or am I not? Do I choose or do I not?
Yep.
Do I care or do I not?
Yeah.
Step by step. Sit with it.
See what comes up. Hammered that one in.
Banged on enough.
Banged on enough. So yes, no matter what diagnosis you may not have, what you may or may not have gone through, your triggers are 100% your responsibility. If you don't wish to project or become the horrible person that you don't want to become, that you went through, like, move through your shit. I think
the old avoiding things by going the long way, which kind of just takes you in a circle to get back to the
back to the. I seen this meme, and because you know, dopamine. I love memes, and it's something that sticks in my head now, and I say to clients all the time, and I swear to God, sometimes I'm like, Sky, shut up. But it's like you can't go over it, you can't go under it. You got to go through it. You know, and on the flip side of it, you can't run away from it. Like if you run away, if you run away and isolate yourself just so you're not being triggered, you're not actually fucking doing anything. You come back out and all of a sudden it's the same thing over and over again. Like you've got to go through it.
I like to qualify because absolutely 100% agree. It's only really one way to get to the other side of that, and it's through it. But it doesn't have to be as painful or as hard as perhaps you're worried it might be.
No.
On the proviso that you've established value in letting things go. It's not as cut and dried and black and white as I've just made it out to sound.
No, but it's not so much letting the old you go so the new you can come in, because you know the you were a year 10 years ago was still you. The you are this year or next year and in the future is going to be different, but it's still you. But like almost in that case of what people would call an ego death in like quotation marks, because, you know, the ego never really dies. It's just how much control it has over you and the other way around. You can't become who you want to be by hanging on to all the shit that you're not willing to let go of, because you will always go back down. Bucket of crabs.
And the bit that I would argue is the most painful bit of that
is the not willingness of letting go.
You're literally trying to rip something out of you that you will not let go of, and you're creating that level of polarizing tension that's the thing that hurts.
Yeah, that friction.
You're trying to cross I was about to say membrane, but that's a little bit too physiologically sciencey. You're trying to cross a barrier by holding on to the bit that won't cross that barrier.
Yeah.
When every other part of you will. I'm just trying to think of a Simpsons analogy that I can remember of that would explain that.
The
it's like
Homer Simpson in the Coke cans when he's stuck in the vending machines. I only know this because my hypnotherapist puts it into his fucking...
Yeah.
He puts it into his course, and it's brilliant. I fucking love it. But
I knew there was one. I was thinking of that one where he's in 3D land and he's got this, like, I don't know, like a watch or something on, and it refuses to cross the vending machine one where it's like, are you still holding on to the cans? And everyone's piecing themselves laughing as he's sheepishly running out. But like, there's things that will not cross that line.
Yeah.
And you're only hurting yourself by holding on to that so tightly. And that's neurology, that's emotional inference and all this sort of stuff. It's just, if you will not let go of the story, your story will keep hurting your feelings, and you will keep getting triggered, and you'll get frustrated because you can't grow past that because you won't let go.
And welcome to the cycle. So, with that being said, have we banged on enough now?
It's only an extra 4 minutes.
We got this.
Yeah.
Right. Be good.
Be kind.
Be smart.
Be your best you.
No bar fights.
See you guys.
See ya.